Welcome. So my name is Trevor. I'll be teaching you about Java. So basically, Java is an object-oriented programming language, among other languages such as C and C++. So but for today we'll be talking about Java. So for any developer, in order for you to carry out programming, you must have an editor. An editor basically is where you write your code, and run your programs. So there's an array of editors that are to be used. There's VS Code, there's NetBeans, there's JetBrains, among others, Eclipse, name them all. So for me, I'm gonna be using the IntelliJ IDEA Community Edition. So basically, if you go to your web browser, Safari, any web browser you're using, you can go and check it out. So you'll find there's the professional edition and there's a community edition. So install the community edition. Personally, I'm preferring this because it's much simpler to use. So basically in Java, there are some key features you need to know about Java. So I have some notes here. I just want to check them out. So let's open them. So as you can see, these are a variety of notes here. So basically Java, the key things about Java is encapsulation, polymorphism, inheritance, and abstraction. So we'll get into detail about everything you're going to learn, but individually I'm going to be taking you through the practical session. So we'll start with our first program in Java. So basically in my IDE I have classes here. So basically for Java, you have to type out your code obviously on the editor, but it's run differently from the other programming languages. So with Java, you have to when you're running your code, it needs to be converted into bytecode first, and then to be run. So I'll give you an example here. Just assume all of this bit from import Java till here something new. So this is the terminal. Go to the terminal. So you're gonna pick the name of the class. So as you can see for our class here, it's exception.java. So what we'll do is just hang on a minute. So this exception.java is the class. So exception.java, and then you have to type out Java exception without the .java in the end. So what you learn is here. So it's just opened here. So this is basically the object-oriented programming. We've talked about Java, we've talked about classes, and as in many programming languages, there are also variables, arrays. Programming is shifting from one programming language to another is basically not that hard. It's basically tiny differences that are put into place. So we'll start first by checking out our the conversion of this code. So when you're compiling a Java program, there's the source code, and then it's converted into Java C, and then the Java C converts it into bytecode, then it compiles the program as Java language, as a Java language. So so let's start with our first program. So basically we are creating an object. So an object in Java, there is a package, there is an object, and there is a class, and methods. Methods and classes. Okay, a method can be inside a class. Okay, I'll show you practically how that works. So a method can be, okay, is always inside a class, but also it can be outside. But most cases in normal running programs, it's only inside a class. So I'll first take you through the fundamentals of what you need to know in Java. So basically, we just want to create an object. Let's go to the editor. Let's create a new class. So when you type in a new class, you just can name it inside. Let's say football. So so our class is called football, and what it entails. So basically, what does a class entail? What does a football entail? It entails players, coaches, stadiums, federations, and stuff. So this is the same thing we are doing. So we are creating an object, and inside of the objects are classes. So these classes just a minute. So let's resume. Sorry. So we've talked about what football entails. So we know about data types, we know about what they entail. So let's say it's players. Okay, let's say string. But I think it is also good, so we can say the number of players. But let's use string for the name of the players. String players. Let's go into coaches. Coaches. Double. Federations. Now federation doesn't count. Let's say what comes double. Let's say pizzas. So basically, we've just placed basic thing of what our football team should look like. So then let's main string. I'll just explain this in a few what it entails. sorry. So I'll just be explaining what I'm doing here. So as you can see, we have an error. You can check what error is. I haven't placed a semicolon. So basically, you see this ID is more advantageous. It gives you the errors that you have made across the way in your code. So in the classes there are objects. In objects there are classes, and in these classes there are variables, and these variables are purposed to store data. So, and the binding of data to let's say these classes and all these things inside the classes, so it's called encapsulation. So we have this statement here: public static void main string args. So this is basically kind of something that you should get to know about it. So basically, in one to, it's kind of in C, you have to know like include stdi, or it's something basically in programming you just have to know. So when you want to print something, obviously you need to print something on your, to display something, use system.out.print. So with this ln is for the next line, but when you use print, it won't jump to the next line. So we can test it out and see its output. So we can just go to the next local, the next tab. So can write java c football.java, and then let's go for java football, and make sure you just write the way it is. So as you can see, this is all that these are in lowercase, and when you check football.java is lowercase. So when you finish, press enter. So you can see it prints out. This is my way of doing things. So that's perfectly fine. So we'll just get into these players, coaches, pitch size in a minute. So let's go back to the notes. So as you can see here, this is the initialization. So int id string name. So we forgot to talk about the data types. So they're basically, if you're new to programming, data types are kind of, if you take it in layman's languages, a way in which data is grouped in terms of not everything will be the same. There are subcategories of data. So data can be of different nature, type. That's why we call them data types. So you, even as an individual, you're not the same. Okay, we as human beings are not the same. We have different types, but also we also have a main goal, which is to relay information. So data is basically different. Is not different from that example of just given. There are types of data. There is doubles, there is integer strings, boolean values, there's decimal values, there are quite a lot. I'm even forgetting some of them. So yeah, just get into them. So we've talked about the properties of an object, encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, and polymorphism. So as I talked to you about earlier, is encapsulation. So encapsulation, we've said, is the process of binding data to the implementation of the object. And how is an object implemented? The object is basically implemented using what? Classes. So we'll just get into deep what using examples. Inheritance by itself is basically explainable. Inheritance is acquiring objects from your predecessors. So that's a layman's example of what is inheritance is. So basically, in terms of programming, what inheritance really is, in terms of Java programming, that is, let's say you've created a class on top. So let's say in our case, we've created a football class. Then right here below, I create another class. No, sorry, not right here below. Like in another class within the same package, I create another class. So inheritance is what will allow this football class to allow these players, coaches, this pitch size to be able to allow the characteristic to be used in other classes. So we'll just get into depth next as we grow. So a class D inherits from class B if these objects form a subset of B objects. So class D is a subclass or a child or a derived class. So I think that's pretty nice, pretty much well explained. So polymorphism basically is having many forms. When you're talking about programming, we'll get into depth about polymorphism later on. So polymorphism is basically extending data and having multiple forms of data, not just having the same type of data. So abstraction, this is something that you'll find more in terms of software development and stuff. Abstraction is basically it's basically kind of something you're avoiding a tougher route and using like much simpler essential features. So what, in a question, let's say somebody asks you what is abstraction, it's basically allowing us as programmers to consider complex ideas while ignoring irrelevant details that can confuse us. Basically, this is a leeway of helping us as programmers. So dynamic binding, attaching a method to a runtime, we'll get later on. So object and messages. So why Java? So as you said, Java is an object-oriented language. Object-oriented means that it's composed of objects, basically. So what you've seen is in Java, you need to know two things: these objects and these classes. So objects is like many classes combined together make an object, and a class is an instance of an object. So Java is platform independent, is simple, is secure, doesn't have any kind of virus. So it's also architectural neutral, it can be used in any format, it's robust, it's portable, it's multi-threaded. These are some things that just explain themselves to you easily. So as I said before, There are many types of IDEs. There is Notepad, NetBeans, Eclipse, jCreator, all this. But personally, as I said, I'm using I'm using IntelliJ because it's much simpler. So let's create our first program. So we've talked about comments. We'll talk about comments. So comments are basically when you want somebody. So basically, in software development, there's something called documentation. So these comments aid in documentation. What is documentation? So when somebody, when you're creating a project or a software, so when you want somebody, or like when there's maintenance, when you're deploying a software to the market, there's verification and validation. So these comments help a new programmer who's coming to maintain the software that you created. It doesn't mean because you created the software, you're the one who's gonna maintain it. Because you as a programmer, you can just create a software and deploy to the company, get paid, and just leave. Okay, depends with your agreement, depends with how life goes. Yeah, basically it's gonna be so. And basically how life will is at that moment, your agreement with the person who wants you to build the software. So basically, as you can see, you're using a slash down and a asterisk. So basically this multiplication sign is called an asterisk sign. So the asterisk comes first, and then the slash sign comes first, and then the asterisk. And then this is for multi-line comments when you're writing long comments in a given space, but in a single line you can basically use the two slashes. So yeah, the main method. So we have our program structure, a class name, public static void. Then okay, let's go back to our example. As you can see, so this is the main method. This is what the program's main method is. So by definition of a main method is very clear, something that is major. So this is the main message of this code, public static void main string args. So we've talked about there are certain rules that govern Java. It's case sensitive. For example, let's go back to our code. If I basically write this with capital letter, immediately get an error everywhere, almost everywhere, because this is a case sensitive language. So you need make sure you check the rules. Make sure you're using uppercase where it's required, camel case where it's required. Yeah, and make sure you match your class name when typing out your code to check the output. Make sure you're following the right sentence. So let's create our first program, which is hello world. So hello world is basically every programmer's kind of like it's kind of a something like a trend, or not really a trend, something like say something that is used by programmers when introducing a new language is hello world. So as we said earlier, just print it out. Java C football dot Java. Sorry. Then Java football. Make sure you just don't add the .java, it won't print anything. So as expected, hello world is printed first. So with that, exclusive of this string players in coaches double size. So this is the main part. This is what will be printed. So as you can see, it prints out hello world. So by doing that, you'll have created your first program. So as you can see here, this system print ln outputs to the console, and as I said, when it's print in the same line, print ln, jumps to the next line. So yep. So let's go to this code, an example of code. Let's print out more lines. So I want you to attempt this. Now, in programming, you just need to attempt practically what you're being taught to get to understand what really it is. So now let's just say, hey, I'm learning Java. Sorry. Hey. Java. Let me be a bit lazy. Don't be lazy like me, just print it out. So as you can see, it prints out hello world, hello, hey, I'm learning Java. So yeah, it's clearly something really interesting. So output data types we've talked about: short, int, long. Variables, these are data stores. A variable is something that stores a value of a particular type. So for example, you want to store a string value. So basically a string is a data type, but a variable can store any data of any type. As you have said, that is a variety. It consists of a variety of details. So yeah. So as you can see, variable declaration. Let's try and declare a variable in our case here. So let's say okay, basically this in coaches, this a variable declaration. We've declared a variable called coaches, and it's storing only data of integer value. So int represents integer values, double represent double value figure, double decimal values. So I think from 6 decimal points is where double hits in. So float, there is float and there is double. So make sure you learn the difference between the float and the double values. So there's a declaration and initialization. You can do it in different lines, but you can also declare them in one line. So as you can see, int x, then x is equals to 1. So here is basically the same. Literals. So literals, check on that. Operators, these addition, subtraction. Basically these are simple operations, the addition. Then there's this remainder operation. So I'll just show you later on what it does. But for now I think I'll end it here. So we'll check about the next. We'll begin on operators in the next session. So make sure you check out my latest videos on operators. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the like button.